Last week, the City Council of Westminster, California, a city that's adjacent to Huntington Beach, it's located in Orange County, decided that they were going to rename a street called American Way to Charlie Kirk Way. This decision is very triggering for many people, and partially because in the 40s, here in Southern California, there's a very famous case called Mendez versus Westminster. It's a case in the 1940s that paved the way for desegregation in public schools across the United States. You might be familiar with Brown versus the Board of Education, which was a Supreme Court case. But the whole reason why that case came about is because of Mendez versus Westminster here in Southern California. Imagine being 8 years old and walking to school with your cousins just to be turned away because your skin was too brown and your last name was too Mexican. That's exactly what happened to Sylvia Mendez and her brothers in Westminster, California in 1944. Before 1947, there were Mexican schools, and those schools were inferior to white schools with less resources and less curriculum. And school officials said that they had to be that way because there was a language barrier. But Sylvia Mendez and her brothers spoke perfect English. Sylvia's parents, Gonzalo and Felicitas Mendez, were outraged and they decided to fight back not only against Westminster School District, but 4 school districts in Southern California inside Orange County. They decided to do it not only for their own children, but for the 5,000 children that were being segregated. Mr. and Mrs. Mendez, along with 4 other families, hired a civil rights attorney named David Marcus, and they filed a class action lawsuit. They said that segregating children creates feelings of inferiority and it violates their 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause. They knew as American citizens that they had rights. In a bold move for the time, Marcus presented social science evidence to prove that there is psychological harm caused by segregation. In 1946, U.S. District Court Judge Paul McCormick ruled in their favor. He declared that segregation practices were unconstitutional and must cease. The decision was upheld by an appeals court in 1947. The governor at the time, Governor Earl Warren, signed a bill making California the first state here in the U.S. to ban segregation. The impact of Mendez versus Westminster didn't stop in California. The social science evidence and the legal arguments were used as the blueprint by the NAACP legal team led by Thurgood Marshall. And 7 years later, those same arguments were used to help win the landmark 1954 Supreme Court case Brown versus the Board of Education, which effectively ended legal school segregation across the entire United States. Over the last 8 to 9 months, I've had a lot of requests from people to do a video about Mendez versus Westminster. And the reason why is because sometimes this case gets forgotten because we always are reminded of Brown versus the Board of Education. This case was the first case to ever use social science evidence to prove a point. It shows that community advocacy really works, that just everyday people can create change, and it shows you the foundation, the history of all of these people that have fought so hard for educational equity and other equal rights. So this reminder about Sylvia Mendez and her walking to school with her cousins and her brothers just to be turned away while her cousins were led into the school is a reminder that if you stand up for your rights, you can make change. Sylvia Mendez is still out there reminding people of her family's story, and she encourages young people to stand up for what's right. Now, I'm no expert on this story. I did my best. If I missed something, please let me know in the comment section. And please share this story with your friends. I agree that most of us do not know the story of Mendez versus Westminster, especially if you didn't grow up here in California. So please share the story. Please think about this. Please remember that your small voice can create big change.